it's your girl Jaymie and your favorite astrologer. In honor of my upcoming solar return, I want to break down exactly what the fuck your solar return is, how to take advantage of this energy to set your intentions for the year. It's an excellent time to goal set, and I want to talk about how it correlates, and your solar return is essentially the beginning of your first year. So, and this is also going to kick off my WTF series where I'm going to be teaching you about what the fuck is your birth chart, your solar return, your progress chart, and a lot of the foundational knowledge in astrology that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. So going into what exactly your solar return is, this is a chart for the following year, and this is when your solar return, this is when your sun returns to the exact placement that it was at the exact time of your birth every year. And hence the name solar return. And this is an excellent time to really deepen your relationship and connect with your sun placement and to get an idea and a theme of what your year is going to be until your next solar return. So your solar return is either going to land on the day of your birthday, a day before, or a day after, but it's within that time frame, and it tells you based on the planetary placements and where things are, sort of the theme, the energy, the focus of that upcoming year, and it allows you to make an informed decision to really take advantage of the astrological support that you have available. Now, of course, you know, you can use free will, you can do whatever you want, but there's a lot of power and collaboration and synchronicity when you are familiar and you're aware of how things are being supported in the upcoming year, and to really take advantage and use that energy. I think solar returns are especially useful for people who are new to understanding astrology, if you're natally a water sign, or if you don't want to get too bogged down into the nitty-gritty of like the timing and all of the details and stuff. This is more just like an overall landmark, a viewprint of what's available, what's going to be the most dominant. And so your sun is going to be in the same sign, but depending, every year you may have a different rising sign, and so this can change the house position of your sign. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar, your birth chart is basically, it's a snapshot of what was in the sky at the exact time of your birth. It's represented by this wheel that's divided up into 12 different sections. I personally use the whole house and the tropical zodiac system. So in each section, there's a house number which correlates to specific areas of your life, and the zodiac sign that's there it tells a story of the themes, the patterns of personality that shows up in that area of your life. And then the planets have the ability to overpower the sign that it's in, so it could either support, enhance, contradict, make the placements spontaneous, unpredictable, muddle it up. It really depends on your on your unique combination. And so in the event of a solar return chart, it's the same concept, and where you have planets in certain houses, it tells you a story of like, that's where that area of your life, there's going to be more attention and more focus on. And particularly when you look at your solar return chart, your sun is about what you're growing into. So because it relates to your career, your professional success, your public accomplishments, these are things that happen later in life. Or when you think about plants growing, the sun will allow a plant to bloom, and you don't know, like some plants may grow really quickly to a matter of a couple feet, whereas some trees can take thousands and thousands of years to grow into, and they're like gigantic, right? So it really does depend. And so different people connect with their sun in a different way. My friend Martina, she's a triple Virgo. She has Virgo sun, Virgo rising, and Mercury rulership in Virgo. So even at an early age, she really resonated with her sun placement. Some of us, we're not necessarily going to connect with it as quickly, but we have a solar return every year. It's an excellent opportunity to connect with your sun during that time. The energy is going to be the most potent. And it's also a great way to be intentional and to take advantage of your placements. So for example, I natally have Cancer in my rising sign. This is the zodiac sign that was on the eastern horizon at the exact time of your birth. But my solar return chart, I'm not always going to be a Cancer rising. It depends on a lot of different factors. Last year I was a Virgo rising. This year my solar return, which is going to be happening in February 20th, is in I'm going to be a Sagittarius rising. So the themes of the year is going to be different. It doesn't change your natal chart. Think of it like nature versus environment. Like your natal chart is your nature, but your solar return, the themes for that year is more environmental. That theme is going to be valid for that year. So you don't want to ignore that, but you don't want to let it take over, and don't ignore where you come from either. So it's a matter of using both of those in harmony with each other. So when you look at your solar return chart, looking at your sun is really important. You want to look at what house it's in that area of your life. You also want to take a look at the aspects. The aspects reveal the type of the way the planet gets along with other planets. But if you're not familiar with aspects and stuff like that, you don't have to get into it. I would say some of the more important aspects to focus on is where your sun is in the house, because that'll tell you this is where you're going to be in the spotlight. This is where there's going to be some public potentiality for public success, career. It's your life force energy. It's anything that makes you feel good. This is where truth is going to be illuminated. This is where your convictions are going to be. This is where you're going to be the most confident. So particularly if you're someone who is struggling with your confidence, this is also a great way to really grow into that side of you. And then you also really want to take a look at the zodiac sign that's on your ascendant in your solar return. And you want to take a look at specifically the element, what sign it is, whether it's a cardinal, fixed, or immutable sign, because this is all going to tell you about the theme of your year. It's going to tell you the best way for you to navigate your life, your energy level, what's going to motivate you to get started. It's about you and your physical body. So say you have, for example, a fire sign here. Then the theme of the year for you is going to be focused on being a leader, taking actions, taking risks. You're not going to be living your life in the same way, like say you have like an earth ascendant, then maintaining things, doing things that are practical, that make sense. Those are the things that might be a theme that's more significant. If you have an air sign here, it's about doing what motivates you and gets you started, is going to be related to collaboration, doing things that are practical and logical in like a socialized setting. If you have a water sign here, it's less about being influenced by your external surroundings and connecting with your inner guidance system, your intuitive emotional urgings. And in order for you to get started, you want to feel right within yourself. So there are different themes, the different elements. And then you also want to take a look at the exact sign and whether it's a cardinal, a fixed, or a mutable sign. So with cardinal signs, it's about getting started. It's about initiating things. And so this is where you might take risks. A fixed sign is maintaining the energy of something. Whereas if you have a mutable sign here, you're sort of a combination. You can get started, but you can also maintain things. In which case you kind of want to take a look at, all right, like, do I want to maintain something that I've been working on? Do I want to finish it off? Do I want to start something new? Do I want to do a combination of this? It really does depend. You have a little bit more flexibility with a mutable sign to a certain degree. So these are the things that you want to take a look at. So for example, the other thing is, in my case, I'm going to be a Sagittarius rising for my solar return on February 20th. Happy early solar return to me. And it's a fire sign. It's also a mutable fire sign because it's the last fire sign. So the mutable signs are the last zodiac sign within that element, that family, that nature. And so it's going to have a certain level of wisdom that the other signs, not that they don't have other wisdom, but they've been working with that energy a little bit longer. So with Sagittarius, it's the last sign. So the cardinal is the Aries, right? They're very much about initiating. It's about getting started on things. And so if you're in your solar return, if you're an Aries rising, you want to take risks. People might look at you and think that you're being irresponsible, that you're making these crazy mistakes because it doesn't make sense. But when you're an Aries rising, whether it's natally in your progress chart, right now we're talking about your solar return, of course, you want to take those risks. You want to take action. You want to lead by example. That's the journey of this year. And if you have your Aries there, this is a very athletic sign. This can be an excellent time to start exercising. And But then when you think about the other fire signs, if in your solar return you're a Leo rising, this is going to be really working on your confidence. This is going to be related to doing things that put you in the spotlight. And depending on the positioning of the whatever, specifically if you're a Leo rising in your solar return, you also want to take a look at your sun, because not only is your solar return about your sun, but Leo is ruled by the sun. So you may be put into a spotlight, and it doesn't mean that it's something that you're going to be comfortable with. Whatever sign is ruling your rising sign, you want to take a look at the condition, the placement of that planet, and see if it has directional strength, if it's got positive aspects, things of that nature. And if you're not fully comfortable, you might not necessarily step into your role as easily, but you could know, there's an indicator if you're a Leo rising in your solar return, okay, this is something for me to focus on. I'm going to be put in the spotlight in some form or another, and it's a really good time to learn to engage in your creativity, to develop your confidence, and to maintain that to the best of your ability, because Leo is a fixed air sign. And then going back to my solar return, Sagittarius rising for this upcoming year, Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign. It rules astrologers, spiritual advisors, coaches. It's very philosophical, religious, spiritually oriented. It's about higher education. So it's about engaging in higher education. It's about being motivated, getting started by seeing the higher perspective of things, because the Sagittarius is represented by a horse, and it's a centaur. It's a half horse, half human. So they're physically taller. They see things from a higher perspective. They're very much about visionaries. They have their bow and arrow, which they use to aim at their goals. So it's not microscopic goal setting where it's precise and detailed like, say, Mercury is with like Virgo. It's still like an instinctive, going with the flow, connecting with your instincts, but also like in order for you to get started with this placement, you want to make sure, like you have to ask yourself, well, what is the higher purpose? You want this to elevate humanity, and you want it to help people on a personal, like spiritual level, help you to set your goals. So if you're a Sagittarius rising, it's a great time to connect with higher education, spirituality. Jupiter is also marketing, and maybe you might want to travel. Like these are also great things to use, and what might motivate you in your profession and your spirituality might be to travel, to connect with foreign cultures, right? So that tells you kind of a story of that evolution of, if in your solar return rising sign, if you have you have 3 different signs in the elements of the fire, but you're still the cardinal, the fixed, the mutable signs. They have a different evolution in their journey. Now, if in your solar return you have an earth sign, that right there is telling you it's a little bit more practical, it's more down to earth, like, whereas like a water sign, I think of it like it's very much like more of a spiritual, intuitive, inner world experience. But when it's an earth sign, I feel like that's like the human-y placement, right? Like you're interacting in that sort of a way. So say you have Taurus in your rising sign. Taurus is the most fixed air sign. Why did I say air? The most fixed earth sign, because it's an earth sign, it's a fixed sign, the energy moves the slowest. So you want to be motivated by things that you desire. You want to make sure that you're comfortable. It's going to take a little bit of time because of that slower moving energy. And in order to motivate you to get started, you want to do things that feel good within your 5 senses, within your physical body, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. So these are the things that you want to consider. If you have, Virgo in your rising sign, that's what I had last year. You want to do things that are practical, logical. You want to look at what you can make better. You might want to collaborate with other people. You want to work behind the scenes. It's a good time to focus on your health as well, and kind of like become intentional with your goals, your routines. What are some things that you can do? How can you make it better? This is an excellent time to seek out support and make improvements in your life, and you're going to be more prone, depending, it really depends on each aspect and every placement. And there's a lot of considerations. Of course, this is a general reading, so not everyone is going to easily come up with or connect with the themes that are associated with your sign, but focusing intentionally on that is really going to help with your solar evolution. Now, if you are a Capricorn rising in your solar return, this is a very strategic, practical placement. It's success oriented. It's professional accomplishments. It's showing up as a leader. It's very security oriented. It's very strategic. It's delegating. It's about using what has worked for you, using tradition, time. It's about systemizing things, structuring things in order to be really successful. And so that's going to be the theme to get started on if you have Capricorn in your rising sign in your solar return. Now, moving on with if you have an air sign here, and let's see, we're looking at Aquarius and Libra here, but let's see, Gemini. So say you're a Gemini rising in your solar return. Gemini is the most mutable sign because it's mutable, it's an air sign, and so it's very much about kind of going with the flow. It's ruled by Mercury, but it's a playful Mercury placement, whereas Mercury ruling Virgo has a little bit more responsibility. It represents teenagers and work environment, and it's very much about adulting and responsibilities, whereas a Gemini, it's about learning for the sake of learning. It's about collaboration and having fun. It's about starting projects. Gemini is related to self-made businesses because it's about natural talents. So if you have a Gemini in your rising sign, in your solar return, this can be an excellent time to explore. Don't try to put too many barriers on what you want to explore. Look at things that have interested you. Maybe working with like local community in your neighborhood, maybe learning new languages, maybe starting a project with your local community. The only thing I would say that is with Gemini, it's very like airy, and you start doing one thing and you do another thing and stuff like that. So sometimes Geminis get a lot of heat from not following through for things, which there's a whole thing about that, which I do want to get into in some of my other videos. Because Geminis are ruled by twins, and one of the twins is a mortal and one is immortal. So basically there's a human twin and an immortal twin. And so the human twin loves to learn new things, but then it feels the idea of finishing a project triggers its fear of mortality. It makes people think of endings. This is why a lot of Geminis will be happy to be with someone, but they don't want to maybe necessarily say, they get the reputation of not wanting to be in a relationship and like officiate, like making it official, because then that's the end, the death to your single life, and it triggers this unspoken fear of endings because of the dynamic of the twins that represent Geminis. So there is something to learn with that. So there are ways to, when you're starting, if you have, wherever you have Gemini in your chart, whether it's in your solar return, your natal, your progress chart, wherever Gemini is in your chart, if this is an area where you have a hard time following through, finishing things, this is an excellent time for you to kind of take a look at, okay, what are some things that I can do to make this more enjoyable and to switch gears and stop operating out of your human twin and operate out of the immortal twin who knows that death is just an illusion. It's not an ending to something. It's a new cycle for something new. So this could be a really good way to sort of offset that energy. But particularly if you have Gemini here, this can be a great time to collaborate with other people and recognize the role that you play and the role that other people play, so that if you're not great with follow through, involve other people who can support you in engaging with that energy to make sure that you can be accountable and take advantage of this collaborative energy, so everyone has a role, and pick something that you know you can contribute and like maintain in a way that's beneficial, and get other people to support you in areas where you're not so 100%. Now, if you're a Libra rising in your solar return, this is a much more relationship oriented placement. So this can mean that what initiates you to get started is to work with another person one-on-one. This can also be a really good time to practice with your communication styles, specifically when you have your, specifically if say like your communication style is a little bit rougher around the edges and stuff like that. This is a great placement because Libra is more refined, more soft-spoken, so this can be a great time to practice being more diplomatic and connecting with one-on-one partnerships. things of that nature. If you're an Aquarius rising sign for your solar return, this is another very social placement because it's an air sign. But with Gemini, it's more like getting to know people and just exploring with communication in general and languages and writing and speaking. And with the Libra, it's more that one-on-one partnership, that union and stuff. This could also mean that like you might do more like collaborate more with business partners and clients as well. And whereas with an Aquarius, it's large group of energy. So it's on the internet, it's bigger groups and stuff like that. So this could be a great time to collaborate with your local community on the internet. Maybe you explore astrology or math or science or some of that aspect of things, and you connect with people. And this is a great time to really revolutionize and be independent. Aquarius is the most complex sign because it's ruled by Saturn, which is a very traditional sign, and it's also ruled by Uranus, which is a very revolutionary, very modern, really independent. So if you're an Aquarius rising here, this is a great time to sort of balance between, okay, what has worked for me? What systems do I want to maintain? Which ones do I want to wash away and replace with something innovative and make it more unique? Find a way to be inclusive and friendly and collaborate with other people while also expressing your individuality and what makes you stand out, and see that contrast within a group dynamic in that environment. It can be that time to explore that. Now, if you have a water sign in your solar return, you want to be looking at the same things as you're going to be urged by your inner motivations, your inner drives. If you have Cancer here, this is a really interesting dynamic because a cardinal sign is about initiating. It's assertive, it wants to get started, but water is the most passive sign. So Cancers oftentimes will want to prematurely launch off and kick off and do something, but also feel like they don't want to. There's sort of like this polarizing energy. And so if you have Cancer here, this is the time to really practice your sense of timing. Like learn to distinguish the difference between your desire to want to start because it's this instinctive like reflex, this primal urging in you, versus whether the timing is actually right or not. With having your Cancer here, this is a great time to connect with your feelings, your intuition, what matters to you, getting to the roots of your origin story, your family, what you need to feel safe and secure in the world. This is a great time to focus on those areas of your life. If you have any challenges with digestion, improve your relationship with your mom or the dynamic of your mom. And it doesn't mean that you have to reconcile with anyone, but maybe taking the time to look at family trauma or different things of that nature related to your family or where you come from. And let's see, with Scorpio, if it's on your rising sign, there's going to be a theme of focusing on trauma healing, letting things go, processing that. This can be a great time to study astrology or psychology, the occult. It's a spiritual, psychic, mystical sign, but it's also very much about taboo. So focusing on things that you wouldn't necessarily want to normally focus on, or maybe you do, but this can be a time where when you work on your traumas, there's going to be a lot more support in being able to address those things. And what can motivate you is to process these things and to explore these dynamics in your life. Now, if you have Pisces on your solar return rising sign, this is the most psychic sign. And when you have a Pisces rising here, like it's so important for you to have spirituality as part of your day-to-day life, because otherwise you tend to like have a lot of challenges and stuff. Whereas because Pisces is about receiving support. It's represented by a fish that can't talk. It doesn't have arms to protect itself if it's getting hit. It doesn't have legs to run away and stuff. And that isn't to say that Pisces isn't protected. Pisces is actually very protected. It rules spirituality, angels, God, compassion, the universe and stuff. But there's a level of surrendering and trust. So if in your solar return you have a Pisces rising, what's going to motivate you to get started, or the best way for you to get started, is to feel spiritually at peace with yourself, to find the spiritual motivation behind things, for you to feel right within yourself. You want to use your intuition. This is going to be a major thing. It's also the sign of isolation. So sort of separating yourself from other people and kind of connecting with yourself can be a great way to get started as well. So these are some things that you want to take a look at. And in addition to, again, looking at your sun sign, whatever you also have in your rising sign, you want to look at the planet or planets that rule you. You want to look at what area, what house it's going to be in, because that's also going to influence you as a person as well. So these are all things that you want to take a look at. And since I do recommend using this for your goal setting, you also want to take a look at what is going on in your 9th house there. Okay, so whatever sign you have in your 1st house, whatever element, that's going to be the element that's going to be in your 9th house of personal goals. So if you have a fire sign, when it comes to setting your goals, you want to be motivated, you want to follow your instincts, you want to be a leader. You know, there's a certain element of like gutsiness to it. If you have an earth sign here, it's going to be about maintaining your goals, doing things that are practical, doing things that make sense. If you have an air sign here, doing things that are logical, collaborative. If you have a water sign, it's a very personal goal as far as how you want to set your intentions. And so you want to use the energy of that as well. So I'm not going to go over all of the signs for that because I don't know if you're tired of hearing me talk. But again, when it comes to goal setting, you want to follow the same rules that I had already mentioned. Whether the sign is a cardinal, you know, what gets you to be motivated is starting new goals, that new fresh energy, in which case try to refresh your goals periodically. You can also, if it's a fixed sign, pick goals that are easiest for you to maintain. If it's mutable, create goals that are flexible. Create goals where you can make adjustments along the way. And this is a great time. What I recommend is on your solar return, sit down and think about your goals. And the way that you do this can also be determined by your sun placement as well, or your rising sign, or whatever your mood is. Now, I like to sit down and write it out, but some people, they might want to do a video. Some people, they might want to do it in a different way, whatever that looks like, but being intentional. And there's something really powerful about when you set the goal during your solar return, you are activated by that solar energy, which is about truth energy. So you're able to see things more clearly. And particularly if you're a water sign or natally, or you have a water sign in your solar return, I find that solar return can be really helpful because it just gives you the general overview of your upcoming year. So this way, you sort of like, you know the themes that's important. And so you also want to look at, like, say you have Aries there, you want to look at where Mars is. You want to focus on taking action. If it's Taurus, it's about Venus. It's about finances, your sense of self-worth, right? So, for example, if you have Taurus, if you're Taurus rising, you also want to take a look at your 2nd house placement of your financial resources, your 11th house of financial gains, your client's money, or your spouse's money, which is your 8th house. If you have, going back to Aries, you know, if you're an Aries rising, you want to look at Mars. You also want to look at your 6th house of your health, your habits, things that are more athletic for you as well. You're also ruled, the sun is also the almutin of Aries, so you also want to take a look at that as well, not just Mars. And with Gemini, you want to look at where your Mercury placement is. You want to look at your 3rd house, things that are related to friends and siblings and neighbors and languages, in which case you also want to take a look at like where your Mercury is, not necessarily just in your solar return, but in your chart natally, to think about what are the best learning environments for you. If you want to collaborate in your own business, you want to look at your 3rd house, your 5th house of starting your own business. If you want to look at your clients, your 7th house, your business collaborators. Your moon is also your following, your clients, your people. Your 11th house is also your followers. As a boss, that's your 10th house there. You could also be looking at your 6th house of your employees, your ideal work environment. And this is also something that you can use for Virgo and Capricorn as well. If you have, but specifically I would say also with Virgo, you might want to look at your 6th house for your health as well. And let's see, also maybe digestion, your 4th house. If you are a Cancer, You want to take a look at your moon placement. You also want to take a look at your 4th house, your 10th house, which are your parent access. And if in your family you want to focus on things related to your siblings, the 3rd house, younger siblings, older siblings, you can look at your 11th house. You can look at your moon, we've already talked about that, your health, your home environment, which is your 4th house as well. If you are looking at if you are a Leo, you want to take a look at, of course, your sun, solar return, pretty straightforward. But you also want to take a look at your 5th house, your creative self-expression, and stop things that put you in the spotlight. You want to take a look if we already covered Virgo. If you're a Libra rising in your solar return, you want to take a look at your Venus placements. And you also want to look at your 7th house of long-term partnerships, your 5th house of romance, dating. In ancient astrology, the 7th house was actually your Kundalini and your 6th house, whereas in modern astrology, it's your 8th house, and that's home to Scorpio. So you can take a look at both of those things depending on what resonates with you, or just pick one that feels right for you. But there's definitely a theme of socializing, connecting with other people. So the type of people that you connect with, for example, if you talk a lot with your friends, you want to take a look at your 11th house, your 3rd house, things like that. If you're a Scorpio rising in your solar return, you want to look at your Mars, Pluto placement. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but you want to look at the retrogrades of all of these planetary influences as well. So you want to take a look at Scorpio placement. So that would be home to your 8th house, the best way for you to process trauma, for example, as well. And specifically, whoever or whatever is traumatizing you. If you have some religious trauma, that might be your 9th house, your 12th house. Addiction might be your 12th house, your 8th house, things like that. There are certain areas. If you have trauma that you want to process that's related to finances, that's your 2nd house, your 11th house, so you can kind of look at whichever area that you're traumatized by. If you have a Scorpio rising solar return placement with Sagittarius, you want to be taking a look at Jupiter, and Jupiter also rules Pisces. So I want to take a look at Pisces, which also, if you're a Sagittarius rising, Pisces rules your 4th house. So you want to look at your 4th house of home, what you need to feel foundationally safe, in addition to where Jupiter is in your solar return chart as well. The aspects. You also want to take a look at your 9th house, which is about your higher education, spirituality. So for the same reason, you can look at the 12th house, which is home to Pisces, which is about spirituality. If you have Capricorn in your solar return chart, you also want to take a look at your your first house, obviously your 2nd house, because both those houses are ruled by Saturn for you. You also want to take a look at your 10th and 11th house, because this is home to Capricorn and Aquarius. So have a special focus on your public reputation, you as a leader, or looking at your leaders, whoever your boss is. Look at your 11th house of financial gains, friends, your followers, your support, areas where you can delegate and be strategic. If you have Capricorn here, that means that for your solar return, it's about you being the leader, you being the boss. So you might want to take a look at your 6th house of if you have employees, for example. If you're an Aquarius rising, you want to take a look at where Saturn is. You want to also look at your Capricorn placement. Same thing, you want to look at your 10th and 11th house for the same stuff. The difference I would say between Capricorn and Aquarius is that both Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn, which rules time, but Capricorn rules time in the past, and time rules the future with Aquarius. So if you're a Capricorn rising, you want to be really focusing on systemizing, structuring things, what works, what doesn't, things like that. And then as an Aquarius rising, you want to start looking at innovating those systems. What has worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? How can you make it more bold, more unusual, make you stand out? With the Pisces rising, you want to take a look at Jupiter, where Sagittarius is, and with all of the signs, with Taurus, look at where your Libra placement is as well. With Gemini and Virgo, take a look at Gemini and Virgo's placement as well. I forgot to mention that earlier. And so same thing, same concept with the Pisces rising. You want to take a look at where Pisces is. You want to take a look at where your Sagittarius is, where your Jupiter is. You want to take a look at your 9th house and your 12th house. Give those houses special considerations focused on personal goals, your spirituality, hidden things, things you want to let go of, things you want to heal, areas of your life where you want to receive support, particularly if you're a Pisces. And so these are some areas that I highly recommend that you check out. The other thing I would mention is, like, if you have a cardinal sign, think about whether not just your rising sign, but where your sun is, whether, you know, if it's a cardinal sign, where do you want to initiate? Where do you want to start new things? What do you want to maintain if it's a fixed sign placement? What are some things that you can continue to round out? If it's a mutable sign, what are some things that you want to finish off, some things that you want to adapt and improve and make better? These are areas that you can focus on, because some people may be in the mood to start completely new goals because it makes sense, but really it may not be the energy that works best for you. So your solar return is an excellent way for you to really look at what you have going on for the following year. You can you can use astro.com, astroseek.com, and what you do, I visually like astro.com, aesthetically speaking. It's visually less competitive and easier to digest, but astroseek.com, also a free resource, has a little bit more specificities and you can customize it more. So it is one that I do recommend, and you put in your birth date for the year, where you plan to spend your time, and it generates a solar return with all of this insight. So you can take a look at the things that I've mentioned, and then I really encourage you at that time to set your goals for the year. According to the calendar year, January 1st is the beginning of the year. Some astrologers say that it's the beginning of Aries, and in Lunar New Year, it's February 4th. And I want to say Cambodian culture, New Year's is in March or something, or April. So there's always a time to refresh, start new goals. Don't be discouraged just because you didn't do anything and kick off launching during January 1st, which, by the way, isn't astrologically the best time to kick off launching anyway. So that's also the other reason why you might not necessarily resonate with that. For me, I love that I set goals during winter solstice. It's the most strategic time to set goals and stuff, and I get all of that like repetition out of my system. And then once January 1st hits, I'm sort of tasting the flavor of the new year. And then because my solar return is in February, I feel like January was like my practice year, and February is the beginning of my year, and I can kick off launching. But some people, your beginning of the first year might be September. That's, you know, I've noticed this a lot with Libra sun signs. They get really social, even if they're generally very introverted or they're Virgo rising. They might want to retreat, but they come alive during their solar return. So definitely celebrate your solar return placement, your sun placement, and especially if you natally don't have a strong connection with your sun, or you want to connect with it more deeply, your solar return is an excellent opportunity every year to get started on this. And it's a way to really personalize and connect with your truth and your individuality, because that's what the sun is all about. And so particularly if you're feeling confused, and even if you're not, but if you are feeling confused about, and you're uncertain, your confidence isn't 100%, you don't know how to do things, or you're not sure how to get started in certain areas of your life, your solar return is an excellent way to explore what that looks like for you. I hope that this video has been helpful. Thank you so much. And I hope you have enjoyed your previous solar returns, and I hope that you're going to be able to take advantage of your future solar returns based on the information that I shared with you. All right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.